It's frustrating for me to try to figure out how to discuss The Expanse. I've made previous attempts, previous versions of this video, but I just wasn't satisfied with it. I wasn't satisfied with what I had said. I wasn't satisfied with where I was taking certain topics. I wasn't satisfied with the length of the videos that I was recording. And I'm probably not going to be satisfied with the length of this video at the same time. What ended up happening all the time was I would find something to zero in on. I would find something about The Expanse to just talk about, that one thing which would end up taking a very long time to discuss, and I would realize that I hadn't even discussed any of the episodes in actual story quality. I was just focusing on the world building. I was just focusing on this setting. I was focusing on the stage that was set before the first line of dialogue was written, and it just goes to show just how fantastic this show really was. And it's a book series. Obviously, it's got great world building if it's a book series like that. It's very, very best-selling. 2 authors, even though it says 1 author, it's a pen name. James A. Corey is a pen name. There's 2 people involved in it. And it's a great series. I plan to read all 9 books eventually. The TV series adapts the first 6. The season 6 is kind of a bumpy ride because it does depart a very good deal from the books. So you're going to want to maybe read books 6 through 9. If you want to just watch the TV show, then read to the books. Read 6, because season 6 is a very different cup of tea, so as to say. Or you could just read all 6, or watch all 6 seasons and then read all 9 books. Either way. But as I was saying, I kept focusing on certain things about this series. Like how I would zero in on how Earth is now united as a global economy, as a global nation, the United Nations, and how that type of thing is a cynical and realistic outlook on the future of planet Earth. There are a lot of sad things going on Earth during The Expanse. Earth has 30 billion people living on it. Earth is suffering from a crisis of resource strain. It's suffering from overpopulation. It's suffering from the fact that society is advancing to the point that it can no longer employ its population. These are very real concerns that our Earth, right now, our real life planet Earth, has right now. We are very concerned that if technology, AI, and everything else keeps advancing at the rate that it does, we're going to have large fractions of the populace that's just no longer needed to run it. So what do when you have a system that only needs 30% of the population to run it, but you have 100% of the population to supply? What is that 70% of the population going to do? They're not needed. You don't have a position for them. What are you going to do with them? These are very real questions that people are asking, and they're going to just ask them even louder as time goes on. Maybe not this decade, maybe the next decade, maybe the next century, but they're questions that we're going to have to answer soon. And The Expanse tries to answer some of those questions, and I thought that was a very realistic attempt at answering some of those questions. It was a very optimistic attempt, but it was also a very realistic attempt at the same time. And I appreciate that they did not shy from the darkness of that type of future, from the fact that over half of the population lives on Earth with no hope for tomorrow because there's just nothing for them to do. They're not needed. They're just living off of basic assistance. Basic assistance in The Expanse is food and shelter. That's it. You got nothing. You're not needed in the system. There's nothing for you to do. You're just wasting away. And it's very sad. What do you do with these people? What can they do? You need to give them something. They need something to do. What, are we going to fight in gladiatorial battles? 1,000 people in a big gladiatorial arena, only one person gets to leave it, and that one person gets a position in it? No, we can't do that. We're not barbarians. We're not monsters. But we're also not capable of sustaining that. If we go into that type of future, we have to figure out what to do with these people. As Earth continued to expand and grow, and eventually unite as a global populace, as a global nation of the United Nations, it expanded out into the universe, out into the solar system. It built stations on the moon. It built colonies on Mars. Those colonies at first were treated probably very much like how Red Faction, the video game series that I absolutely love, Red Faction, was treated. Especially the first game. And Red Faction, it talks about an uprising of the working class on Mars against the mistreatment of their rights with Earth. Everything that they continue to mine, everything that they continue to do, nothing was owned by them. It was owned by Earth. And the longer these people spent on Mars, the less they've started to identify as Earthlings, and they started to identify as Martian. And so when you live in a society where you no longer identify yourself as part of Earth, why does Earth continue to take everything that you make? So eventually, after the creation of the Epstein drive, a space magic science fiction machine-y bobber that allows for faster flights throughout the solar system in a realistic time frame, you can go from Jupiter to Earth in a couple weeks, maybe, instead of a couple years. And that's realistic travel now. And so we can start traveling across the solar system in realistic time frames that we can actually tell a story set in the solar system. And that's what we did. So Mars has one of its scientists create the Epstein drive. There was a big brain drain that was going on Earth at the time. There were opportunities on Mars. Over half of Earth's population has nothing to do, but there are a lot of very incredibly intelligent people with nothing to do because there are already people in those positions and they don't have opportunities to do anything. So they go to Mars. They decide, hey, here's Mars. Let's just go there. We're needed there. We can do something there. And so there was a big brain drain event that was going on, and all the people left Earth for Mars because they needed geologists, they needed people to work on the terraforming project, they needed engineers to build the domes. And eventually, Mars had science and technology that, if at first rivaled, and then surpassed Earth. The Epstein drive was created by a Martian engineer scientist man. And then in a declaration of independence, in a peaceful manner, Mars declares its independence and offers to give the Epstein drive plans to Earth as buying their freedom, so as to say. And Earth accepts this, because Earth realizes that if they did not have the Epstein drive, if Mars declared war, and a revolutionary war, so as to say, against Earth, Earth might be very hard-pressed without that Epstein drive. So Earth accepts Mars's proposal for independence, and they get the Epstein drive, and now both of them are now building starships with the Epstein drive. It's a very interesting story. It's a very interesting setting that I want to keep talking about the world-building aspects of this place far more than I want to talk about the story. And don't get me wrong, the story is fantastic. It's just I think you should watch this show rather than have me tell you what that story is. I want to talk about the world building to see if that hooks you. Does this hook you? Do any of these ideas interest you, intrigue you? Do you want to know more? I certainly did. I certainly wanted to know a whole lot more. I think a lot of this is very fascinating, and I think it's a realistic look at where we might be going in space eventually. I think that the inevitable path for this planet is either complete and total destruction or unity. I think that's inevitable. This planet is destined to unite under a global conglomerate. What that conglomerate is, I'm not going to say, because I can't say. I don't know. But I do know that when we come to exploring space, the best way to do that is when you're of one single mind about it. When you're competing with every other nation, you're going to have an Antarctica situation, where this big blob of nothing has been carved as a pie chart between all these other companies. They just say, point to this is mine, and then these guys say, oh, this is mine over here, this is mine, don't go on my side, don't go over here. And eventually you're going to have a repeat of medieval Europe on Mars, and it's just going to be chaos. It's just orderly when it's just one unified mind saying, alright, Earth belongs to Mars, or Mars belongs to Earth, etc. The Earth goes to Mars and they stake a claim. The entire planet is one mind. It's a lot easier in science fiction stories, especially when Earth is united. Although it's very easy to make dystopian science fiction stories as well, because we're all very pessimistic and cynical about where we might be going in the future, so we make a lot of cynical stories at the same time. There are a lot of cynical outlooks on the future. Stories like Subnautica talk about corporatizing the future, where Earth is not controlled by a government, but it's controlled by corporations. The Alien franchise also does this, where Earth is not controlled by a government, it's controlled by corporations. And corporations own all the starships out there, and everybody is either working for a company or they are destitute. And that's fascinating, it is, but it's very sad at the same time. It makes you feel bad, it really does. It makes you feel bad. The Expanse is a great compromise. It is a system that gives you hope, but feels realistic at the same time. It doesn't feel cynical, it feels realistic. It doesn't feel optimistic or pessimistic. It just feels like the natural progression for where humanity is going. We're still going to bicker. We're still going to fight each other. It's just going to be on bigger scales. Earth is going to unite, but Earth is going to have other factions on other bodies in our system that we're going to be bickering against instead. Earth is going to bicker with Mars. Mars is going to bicker with the asteroid belt. The asteroid belt may bicker with outer planets, even further out. Ganymede, Titan, Io. These stations are probably going to grow even bigger, and they're going to want to have their own say instead of being reliant upon other corporations, other systems, other government factions. They're eventually going to become self-sufficient, and they're going to want their own say. It's the natural progression of colonies to do this. And so now it's just natural to expect that the solar system is going to be a new medieval Europe in the future. You're going to have a medieval Europe map with all these factions, all these countries, all these nations are being built up. Empires are going to rise to try to gobble up some of them. Freedom fighters are going to try to liberate some of these, and the map is going to change shape and identity. Countries are going to be renamed, they're going to be liberated, and the old name may come back, and glory days of an ancient bygone era are probably going to try to come back. Maybe we'll have a Holy Roman resurgence, maybe we'll have a holy other thing resurgence. We're going to have and reshape and play with our little puzzle pieces in this alphabet soup bowl we call the solar system, because it's just what humans do. That's like, we've been here for a long time. We've been on this planet for a long time, and we're incapable of working together unless we work against somebody else together. So, how do you get Earth to work together? Well, Earth will work together against Mars. There you go! How do you get Mars to work together? Well, Mars will work together against Earth. It's realistic, because after Season 2, when Earth and Mars make peace, Mars's entire government collapses. Their identity was against Earth. Now that they're allied with it, who are they anymore? So many of Mars's people lose their sense of identity, lose their sense of self, lose their sense of drive. And many of them leave Mars to go somewhere else. And in books 6, 7, 8, they form the Laconian Empire because they are still very volatile of a people. They need something to go up against so that they can unite against it. And then you realize, once you control everything, if the Laconian Empire controls all of humanity, if that was your goal, once you finally achieve it, is it going to be fragile like Alexander's empire? Because how can you unite humanity through force, you know? That never works. Historically, it has never and will never work. Uniting by force will always collapse. It will always collapse. The past 10,000 years have proven this for a definitive fact. You can try to learn from it all you want, but if you try to repeat those mistakes, even though you say, oh, we're going to try to do it by force through this manner, you're still going to fail. You're still going to fail. It's inevitable. And I love that. I find this fascinating to look at. And the story itself, we get contact with extrasolar, if that's the right word, interstellar. An interstellar object comes into the solar system. That might be a correct term. Interstellar, meaning something from outside the solar system comes into the solar system. An interstellar object called the protomolecule is a very big focus over the entire series, and that thing is, it kind of changes as it goes on. They experiment with it. It kind of shapes. It's a plot device, space magic type of thing, and it kind of is disappointing where it goes, how it keeps changing. But on Arrow Station during seasons 1 and 2, it's a very different thing. It kind of feels like Resident Evil virus, nanovirus blue stuff going on. What the heck's going on with all this stuff? Why does it keep absorbing people? Why is everybody melting and all that stuff? It's very strange what's going on here. And then it does something else completely different by season 3. And I love the season 3 and 4. There's a character in there called Ashford. He's probably my favorite character in this entire series. He is a former pirate, a Robin Hood style pirate. The Belt is the next stage of the workers on Mars rebelling against the Earth corporations, and then they want their independence. That's the very next step. You know, they go out into the Belt. Mars and Earth go out into the asteroid belt, and they have the working class out there mining objects and stuff, but they're not treated very fairly. They're not. They're abused. They're trying to get profit. They're trying to get most of the resources, and they try to starve the people out by saying, you know, you can't get oxygen out here. You can't get food out here. We'll give you oxygen and food in exchange for you keeping yourselves in line. Don't try to say, I want independence, or we'll shut off your water supply. And that's kind of not right. It's obviously not right. It's obviously not going to be viewed as right. But nobody in this series is entirely right. Earth isn't right. Mars isn't right. The Belt isn't right. Nobody is right, but both people have portions of their worldview that are justified. They're justifiable. Everybody has a right to exist. Everybody has a right to fair treatment. But how do we work about being united when we keep having all these old biases? We have parts of Earth that want to cooperate with the Belt. We have parts of the Belt that just want to destroy Earth. So how do we cooperate when we have fractions of Earth and the Belt that want nothing to do with each other? They just want to fight. We have people in the Earth's government that want to make peace with the asteroid belt. They want to make peace with Mars. But there are big economical problems with peace. As you could see with Mars. Mars's entire identity was military based. Was based entirely off of an eventual war with Earth. That's their entire identity. When you change the cultural climate of what's going on, a nation has to evolve or it will crumble. Mars proved it could not evolve, and so its people left, and the planet and its society that remained crumbled a lot faster than Earth did, and eventually the Laconian Empire moved in and took out what was left of the solar system, because the solar system was fractured, it was divided, it kept fighting each other. Millions, billions died because people refused to work together. Their ideals were too strong and too unable to make compromises that they caused irreparable harm to each other. That a greater power that was united came in, and when they finally united against it, it was too late, and they got gobbled up. And the TV series ends before we get to see what happens after that. We don't get to see the Laconian Empire, but I hope we do. I hope we do get to come back to this setting and see where our characters are 20 years, 30 years from now. The time skip is about 30 years, but I think you could just make a 10-year real time skip, like come back and start filming in 2035 or something. What do I mean by that? Well, in the Expanse's universe, people age a lot slower. There are anti-aging medication going on. Avasarala is like in her 70s, but she looks like she's in her 50s. She is not even middle-aged yet. Avasarala starts to be middle-aged by the after the time skip. She starts being old after the time skip. And Holden is, I want to say, in his late 50s to his 60s, maybe even his 70s after the time skip, but he only looks like he's in his 40s or 50s. So you could justify coming back after 10 years, having people age physically 10 years, and say, oh no, they aged about 20 to 30 years instead. And be realistic, And after 10 years of a time skip, people will be nostalgic for the show. People will be very fond of the show. People will want this show to come back, and you will be able to come back with 3 more seasons. Maybe a genius marketing move. So I'm giving you some ideas, Amazon. I'm giving you some great ideas. Please follow up on it if you still own the rights to the Expanse after 10 years. And if you don't, I hope somebody else picks it up and does this. I hope Sci-Fi comes back and repicks this up and tries this. I just come back in 10 years. Come back and try this story again. Another thing that I kind of want to bring up before I close this out is the character of Alex. And characters are played by actors. That's just, it's obvious. This is the obvious reality of our reality. Where we have stage plays, we have films, anything. People are played by people, but characters are played by people. When you're writing a book, you don't need to worry about what actors are doing off screen. Whether an actor has committed a crime or anything like that. Your characters are yours. You don't have to worry about anybody playing your characters and what they are doing off-screen in their own private lives. And whether they may kick the bucket, or commit a crime, or get alleged to have committed a crime, You don't have to worry about that when you're just writing a story in a book. When you're adapting it for television, you do have to keep track of your actors. You have to keep track of what's going on. If anybody's doing drugs, if anybody is a bad alcoholic and are terrible off-screen and are a menace to society, getting many DUIs and going in and out of prison, you have to keep track of your actors like this, And yes, PR is very important. If you have a court of public opinion, and the court of public opinion is turned against your actors, they may turn against you, the studio, if you continue to employ the actors. So I get it, I understand. when Cass Anvar, I think that's his name, the actor's name, who plays Alex, got a lot of allegations set up against him. Whether they were true or not, he had a bunch set up against him before they filmed the final season. While filming the 5th season, he had a lot of things packed up against him and all that stuff. And I can understand and respect the company wanting to part ways with this person over those problems. However, you shouldn't just kill off a character because an actor is leaving. You recast them. The show already recasts a bunch of characters, but they were minor characters, right? Avasarala's husband in the first 3 seasons was played by somebody else. Avasarala's husband in season 4, and I want to say 5, was played by somebody else. And by season 6, we have recastings for a reason. Because when an actor has conflicts, they get fired, they die of natural causes, whatever the case may be, recasting is the choice you often would make. And I would respect recasting for these issues, especially if you could try to make it believable. For a main cast member, recasting is a lot difficult. It's a lot more difficult. You can recast a minor character and most people wouldn't even notice. I noticed for quite a few people. Avasarala's husband's obvious example. And for this one, I think you should have recasted Alex, because he's a main character. He's a main focus. He does a lot in the latter 3 books. The 3 books that they haven't adapted yet. He does a lot. He makes it to the end of the story. Killing him off at the end of season 5, at the end of book 5, is a disservice to the creative intent of the authors. And even though the authors may make that choice too, I would argue to make the choice of recasting the character. And a great way to do this would be to just tweak the plot a little bit. We already have space bullcrap magic like the polymolecule changing things all the time. You could just make a new excuse and say BS like nanomachine, son, and all that stuff, and just change the rules. Well, here's how you could do this with Cass Anvar, with Alex. If you want to fire Cass and get somebody else in, then what you would do is at the end of his scene, at the end of season 5, Cass suffers a major stroke. He survives. Alex suffers a major stroke. He survives. However, his face is completely shut down. All of the nerves are dead. He would have to undergo a complete facial reconstructive surgery to reinstall new nerve endings and have new cells regrow his face. And maybe have one of the surgeons, the space surgeons, space doctors, go like, we could do this, but his face may look completely different by the time we reconstruct him. He may even sound different because we have to also repair and reconstruct his vocal cords because those also shut down. And then after they fix him up, after Alex has been fixed up, he looks like a completely different person. He sounds a little bit different. Keep the accent. And there you go. Keep somebody of the same ethnicity, but keep the accent, but just change the actor. And there you go. There's Alex for the rest of the series. That's what you should have done, in my opinion. That's what you should have done. And it's the same opinion I had for T'Challa, Black Panther. When Boseman passed away tragically too early before his time, I would have said to recast him. And a great way would be to utilize one of the comics where Black Panther dies, and then he undergoes some sort of spiritual journey in the afterlife, and then he comes back to life. I would have said that when Black Panther gets reincarnated, he's reincarnated as a different actor. There you go. T'Challa's alive, different actor. Continue the story. That's just the best way to do it without getting rid of your characters. This is just my opinion, by the way, with the whole Alex thing. It's just my opinion. I think you should have recasted him. It's just... But yeah, that's The Expanse. And again, I've already gone off topic. I haven't even discussed a single episode. But in this specific video, I actually intended not to. I actually don't want to discuss the story. I wanted to discuss the world. I wanted to discuss the setting. And I wanted to see, does any of this interest you? Does any of this intrigue you enough to want to watch the show, to read the books? And if it does, then I think I succeeded in what I wanted to do. Go watch The Expanse.